I'm Andrea, and everything started one evening at a family dinner in my Miami apartment. Halfway through the night, my 5-year-old daughter tugged on my hand and whispered something that made my stomach tighten. I looked at my mom across the table, smiling like nothing was wrong, yet something in that moment didn't add up. I noticed what my daughter was holding and my world tilted. This wasn't an innocent mistake. I'd had my doubts before, but now I knew. I didn't shout. I didn't panic. I reached for my phone-captured proof and made a call I never thought I'd have to make. 10 minutes later, there was a knock at the door. Growing up in Miami wasn't all sun and beaches. My mom, Denise, ran our house like a drill sergeant after my dad, David, walked out when I was 10. I was the one scrubbing dishes, folding laundry, keeping the lights on, while Denise barked orders. She called me her little helper, but by 16, it felt like a life sentence I didn't sign up for. My dad sent postcards from time to time, usually with $20 tucked inside, but he was a ghost. It was just me and Denise. And I learned early that keeping the peace meant keeping my mouth shut. Fast forward to my mid-20s, I met Jason, my ex-husband. He was a marketing director, all charm and big promises, the kind of guy who could sell sand in a desert. I fell hard. Denise loved him probably more than she ever loved me. She'd say, "He's got his head on straight, Andrea. You're lucky." It stung, but I believed her. We got married, had Shannon, my daughter, now 5. For a while, it was good. Jason's company was booming, and he offered Denise a job as his assistant. She ate it up, bragging about her important role to neighbors, her email signature practically glowing with pride. But cracks showed fast. Jason worked late too late, and I wasn't naive. I found the texts flirty, then explicit, with some woman from his office. When I confronted him, he didn't even deny it. Just shrugged like I was overreacting. I packed a bag, took Shannon, and left. Divorce was messy but final. Denise didn't bat an eye when I told her. "Men stray, Andrea," she said, sipping her coffee. "You should have worked it out. Think of Shannon." I stared, waiting for her to ask if I was okay. She didn't. Instead, she kept working for Jason, singing his praises like he hadn't shattered our family. "He's professional, generous," she'd say. "He still takes care of me." That was the first betrayal, but it wasn't the last. Shannon's gluten allergy showed up when she was 3. One bite of the wrong bread sent her to the ER, doubled over with stomach pain. It wasn't life-threatening, but I became a label-reading maniac. No gluten in my house, ever. I told everyone, Denise, Jason, her preschool teachers. Denise nodded, bought Shannon gluten-free snacks, even showed up with safe cookies for her birthday. She'd hug Shannon, call her my little angel, and I thought she cared. But there was always something off. Her smiles, too wide, her questions about Shannon's diet, too pointed. I brushed it off. Maybe I shouldn't have. Jason didn't disappear after the divorce. He wanted to stay involved, which meant sporadic visits and big promises to Shannon he rarely kept. But when the custody battle started, he got serious. He wanted 50% custody, maybe more, claiming Shannon needed both parents. I wasn't buying it. His condo was all glass and sharp edges, no place for a 5-year-old. Plus, I was the one bandaging her scraped knees, reading bedtime stories, knowing her favorite stuffed animal was a blue elephant named Sprinkles. I fought fair, but Denise took his side. "Jason's stable, Andrea," she'd say. "You're too emotional. Shannon needs structure." It felt like a knife. My own mother choosing my ex over me. I tried to keep things civil for Shannon's sake. I invited Denise over, let her take Shannon to the park, hoping she'd see I was a good mom. But she'd come back with stories about how Jason's place had a pool, how he was so good with Shannon. It made my skin crawl. Crystal, my best friend, saw through it. "Your mom's playing favorites," she'd say, passing me a coffee. "She's got her own agenda." I didn't want to believe it, but doubt crept in. Denise's job with Jason gave her status something she clung to like a lifeline. Was she protecting that over her own granddaughter? Then came the call that set everything in motion. Denise's voice was sugar-sweet over the phone, the kind that made my guard go up. "Andrea, let's have a family dinner tomorrow," she said. "Invite Jason. It's for Shannon's sake. She deserves to see us all together." My stomach twisted. I didn't trust her, not after months of her nudging Jason's case in the custody fight, but I thought of Shannon, her big eyes, her love for family time. I said yes, picturing a quiet dinner, maybe a chance to prove I could handle things. The menu was set arroz con pollo, a nod to Miami's Cuban heart. I spent the day chopping onions, marinating chicken, telling myself it'd be fine. But as I hung up, Denise's words echoed for Shannon's sake. Why did it sound like a warning? I stood in my kitchen, the humid Miami air pressing through the window, and felt a chill. Something wasn't right. I couldn't shake the feeling that inviting Jason and Denise wasn't just a dinner. It was stepping into a trap I didn't yet understand. The next morning, my phone buzzed with an email that hit like a punch. It was from Kyle Jason's lawyer, a young hotshot, with a slick tone I could feel through the screen. "Andrea, the custody hearing for Shannon is set for 3 days from now," it read. "Jason is prepared to demonstrate his suitability as a primary caregiver." My hands tightened around the phone. 3 days I'd been scrambling to gather proof I was a good mom. Doctor's notes, school records, photos of Shannon's crafts pinned to our fridge. But Jason had money, a fancy condo, and that calm smirk judges love. I felt the walls closing in. Denise didn't help. She called right after, her voice dripping with concern that didn't reach her eyes. "Andrea." "I heard about the hearing," she said. "Jason's got a stable life job, home routine. Maybe Shannon would be better off with him just for a while. You're so emotional lately." I gripped the counter, biting back a response. Emotional. I was the one juggling Shannon's doctor visits, her gluten-free diet, her nightmares about storms. Denise knew that. But she worked for Jason, basked in his praise, and I could hear it in her tone. She was Team Jason, not mine. I tried to focus on Shannon, who was coloring at the kitchen table, her tiny hands gripping a crayon. "Baby, you okay?" I asked. She nodded, but her eyes darted to the door like she was waiting for something to go wrong. That's when my phone pinged again, a text from Ms. Lopez, Shannon's preschool teacher. "Andrea, can we talk? It's about your mom." My stomach dropped. Ms. Lopez was sharp, the kind of teacher who noticed everything. I called her back, my voice low so Shannon wouldn't hear. "Andrea, I didn't want to alarm you," Ms. Lopez started, but Denise came to school yesterday. She asked Shannon a lot of questions about her diet, what she eats, if she's ever tried cookies at school. It felt off. She was too focused on the gluten thing. I froze. Denise knew Shannon's allergy inside out. Why was she asking a 5-year-old about cookies? Ms. Lopez paused, then added. She seemed overly sweet, like she was fishing for something. "I thought you should know." My mind raced. Denise had been to our apartment a few days ago, dropping off a stuffed animal for Shannon. I'd let her in thinking she was just being a grandma. But now I remembered her lingering by my purse, her hands brushing the side pocket where I kept Shannon's allergy meds. I checked it later, nothing was missing, but I found a small jar of cookie topping in her bag when she left it on the couch. It wasn't labeled gluten-free. At the time, I thought it was careless. Now it felt like a clue. I thanked Ms. Lopez, hung up, and stood in my humid Miami kitchen, the smell of last night's coffee lingering. Jason's custody push, Kyle's email, Denise's weird questions at school, it was all piling up. I looked at Shannon humming softly as she drew a lopsided sun. She didn't deserve to be caught in this. But Denise's actions weren't adding up, and that jar in her bag gnawed at me. Was she planning something, or was I paranoid I needed answers, and I needed them fast? Then my phone rang Ms. Lopez again. Andrea. I just remembered she said her voice urgent. Denise specifically asked if Shannon ate cookies at school today. I told her no, but she pressed like she was double-checking. Be careful, okay? My heart thudded. This wasn't just suspicion anymore. Something was wrong, and it was bigger than I'd feared. I sat on my couch, the Miami heat seeping through the walls, my phone still warm from Ms. Lopez's call. Denise's questions about Shannon's diet weren't just odd, they were a warning. That jar of cookie topping I'd seen in her bag flashed in my mind, unlabeled and out of place. I couldn't wait for answers to fall into my lap. I needed to know what my mom was up to, and I needed it now. Crystal, my best friend, was my only hope. She dabbled in tech, knew how to dig into places she shouldn't. Crystal, I texted, can you get into Denise's email? I know it's not legal, but I'm desperate. She didn't hesitate. For Shannon, I'm in. By midnight, Crystal sent me a file. My hands trembled as I opened it, the screen glowing in my dark apartment. The emails were between Denise and Jason sent over the past week. My heart sank with every line. They were planning to sabotage me at the dinner I'd agreed to host. Denise wrote, I'll bring cookies, say they're gluten-free. Shannon eats one, gets sick, and Andrea freaks out. Shows she can't handle her. Jason replied, I'll have meds ready to step in, look like the hero. Kyle says it'll seal the custody case. Denise's next email made my blood run cold. I suggested the cookie idea. You're welcome. When's my promotion? She wasn't just enabling Jason. She was the mastermind trading my daughter's health for a better job. I reread the emails, my hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped the phone. This wasn't carelessness. It was calculated. They wanted Shannon to hurt not enough to be dangerous, just enough to make me look unstable. The custody hearing was in 3 days, and they were betting on me crumbling. I paced the living room, the hum of the AC drowning out my racing thoughts. Shannon was asleep in her room, her blue elephant sprinkles tucked under her arm. She trusted me to keep her safe. I'd been a victim long enough swallowing Denise's jabs, Jason's lies. Not anymore. I called Crystal, my voice low but steady. They're trying to set me up, I said. They think I'll fall apart. They're wrong. Crystal didn't miss a beat. What's the plan? I took a breath, the weight of my next words settling in. I'm not just protecting Shannon. I'm going to destroy them. I'd host the dinner play along, let them think I was clueless. But I'd be ready, camera hidden in the kitchen, extra allergy meds stashed in my bedroom. I'd let them walk into their own trap, catch them red-handed, and make sure the police saw everything. It was risky, maybe even dirty, but Shannon was worth it. Crystal promised to keep digging, maybe find more emails to strengthen my case. I hung up, my mind spinning. This wasn't the Andrea who used to clean up Denise's messes or beg Jason for scraps of loyalty. This was someone new, someone who'd fight fire with fire. I glanced at Shannon's door, picturing her tiny frame curled up in bed. I'd do anything to keep her safe, even if it meant crossing lines I never thought I would. As I set my phone down, a chill hit me despite the Miami heat. I'll make them regret this, I whispered to myself, my voice hard. But a small part of me wondered, was I becoming like them, playing their game, bending the rules? I pushed the thought away. Shannon needed me to be strong, not perfect. Tomorrow's dinner wasn't just a meal, it was my chance to end this. The Miami sunset painted my apartment orange, but the air inside felt heavy, like a storm was brewing. I'd spent the day preparing for the family dinner, my hands steady as I chopped peppers for a arroz con pollo, but my mind racing. Denise and Jason thought they had me cornered. Their plan to slip Shannon a gluten-laced cookie to make me look unhinged was clear from the hacked emails. They didn't know I was on to them. Tonight I'd play their game, but on my terms. I'd hidden a small camera in the kitchen tucked behind a potted plant, its red light invisible. Extra allergy meds were stashed in my bedroom drawer. I was ready. When Denise arrived, her smile was all teeth like a shark circling. "Andrea, this smells amazing," she said, setting a bag on the counter. I nodded, my face a mask of calm, though my pulse hammered. Jason showed up next, his cologne sharp, his grin too easy. "Good to see you, Andrea," he said, like we were old friends. I forced a smile, my stomach twisting. Shannon clung to my side, her tiny hand sweaty. She didn't usually act this shy, and it set my nerves on edge. We sat at the table, the clink of plates loud in the tense silence. Denise chatted about her job, dropping Jason's name like a trophy. "He's so organized, always on top of things," she said, glancing at me. "Poor Andrea, you're always so emotional, aren't you?" Her tone was pitying, but her eyes gleamed with confidence. Jason chuckled, sipping his beer. They thought they were in control. I kept my expression neutral, though my hands itched to clench. Every word felt like a jab, but I wouldn't break, not yet. Shannon pushed her food around her eyes, darting between me and Denise. She sensed something, her little brow furrowed. "Baby, eat your chicken," I said softly, brushing her hair back. She nodded but didn't touch her plate. Denise noticed, leaning forward. "Shannon, sweetie, I brought you something special," she said, pulling a small box from her bag. My heart skipped. Here it was. She opened it, revealing a stack of cookies, their sugary smell filling the air. "These are gluten-free just for you," she said, handing one to Shannon with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I watched Shannon take the cookie, her fingers hesitant. My chest tightened, but I kept my face blank, years of swallowing Denise's barbs paying off. I'd seen the emails, I knew it wasn't gluten-free. Jason leaned back casual, but his eyes flicked to Shannon, waiting. They thought this was their moment. Shannon looked at me, then at Denise, her voice barely a whisper. "Mommy, I'm scared of Grandma." The words hit like a shockwave. Denise laughed too loud. "Oh, sweetie, don't be silly," she said, but her hand twitched. I leaned forward, pretending to adjust Shannon's plate, and glanced at the cookie in her hand. The label on the box was tucked under, but I caught a glimpse, gluten clear as day. My blood boiled, but I stayed cool. "Shannon, let's save that for later," I said, gently taking the cookie and setting it on the table. Denise's smile faltered just for a second. I stood, saying I needed to grab water, and checked my purse on the counter. Shannon's allergy meds were gone, just as I'd expected from the emails. They'd planned every detail. In the kitchen, I pulled out my phone, snapped a photo of the cookie box, and sent it to Crystal with a quick text. "It's happening. Keep the email file ready." My hands were steady, but inside I was a mess, anger, fear, and a fierce need to protect Shannon clashing. I'd set the trap, and they'd walked right in. Back at the table, Denise was still talking, her voice too bright, Jason nodding like they were untouchable. Shannon clung to me, her eyes wide, sensing the wrongness in the air, not just from Denise, but from the whole room. I kept my voice even, asking about their day, playing the clueless mom they expected. But every second I was watching, waiting for them to slip further. The camera was rolling, catching Denise's overconfident smirk, Jason's relaxed posture. They had no idea I'd turned their plan against them. I'd let them think they were winning right until the moment I pulled the rug out. As Shannon gripped my hand tighter, her eyes panicked, I felt a surge of resolve. Denise's laugh rang out again, oblivious to the storm coming. She didn't know my camera had captured every move, every lie. I wasn't just saving Shannon tonight, I was about to end this game for good. Shannon's hand was still gripping mine, her small fingers trembling as she sat beside me at the dinner table. Denise's fake smile lingered, her eyes darting to the cookie I'd set aside, its gluten label hidden but burned into my mind. Jason sipped his beer, oblivious, his posture smug, like he'd already won. The Miami air felt thick, pressing against the windows of my apartment, but I was ice cold inside. My hidden camera was rolling, capturing every second of their overconfidence. I'd planned this moment since last night's email hack, and now it was time to spring the trap. I stood, keeping my voice light. "Shannon, let's get you some juice," I said, guiding her to my bedroom. She didn't question me, her trust absolute. I locked the door behind us, pulled out my phone, and dialed 911. "My daughter has a severe gluten allergy," I said, my tone steady despite the adrenaline. "Someone at my home intentionally gave her a product with gluten and took her medication. I have proof, photos, emails, video." The operator asked me to stay calm, said officers were on their way. I slipped the backup allergy meds from my drawer into my pocket, just in case. Back in the dining room, Denise was chatting about work, her voice too bright. "Jason's doing so well," she said, as if I cared. I nodded, my face a mask, but my mind was counting minutes. 10 minutes after my call, a firm knock echoed through the apartment. Denise froze mid-sentence. Jason's beer paused halfway to his lips. I opened the door and 2 officers stepped in, a man with a clipped voice and a woman whose eyes scanned the room like she'd seen it all before. "Ma'am, we're here about your call," the woman said. I gestured to the table where the cookie box sat, its label now visible. "That's the cookie my mom gave my daughter saying it was gluten-free. It's not. And her allergy meds are missing from my purse." Denise laughed, a high-pitched sound that didn't match her wide eyes. "Andrea, this is absurd," she said. "It's just a mix-up. I'd never hurt Shannon." Jason nodded, his charm kicking in. "She's overreacting, officers. You know how it is." I didn't flinch. "Check her bag," I said, pointing to Denise's purse on the counter. The male officer opened it, pulling out Shannon's allergy meds in their familiar blue case. Denise's face paled. "I don't know how that got there," she stammered. The woman officer raised an eyebrow, unamused. I pulled out my phone, showing the photo of the cookie box, then mentioned the emails. "I have proof they planned this," I said. "Emails between them discussing how to make me look unstable for the custody hearing. My friend Crystal can send them over." The officers exchanged a look. Denise's voice turned shrill. "This is harassment. You can't just accuse me over a cookie," but I wasn't done. I walked to the kitchen, retrieved the memory card from the hidden camera, and handed it to the woman officer. "This shows her giving Shannon the cookie knowing it had gluten. She thought I wouldn't notice." Jason's face changed, his smugness cracking. "Sawambiet." He blurted, his voice low, almost a whisper. I met his eyes, my expression hard. "Because I'm not the mess you think I am." The officers stepped into the hallway to review the footage. I sat back down, pulling Shannon close. She was quiet, her eyes wide, sensing the room's tension. Denise tried to recover, her voice softening. "Andrea, I was just trying to help. You're under so much stress. We thought I cut her off. You thought you could use my daughter to win a court case." My words were calm, but they landed like a slap. The officers returned, the woman's face grim. "We found the meds and the footage is clear," she said. "We'll need to take you both to the station for questioning." Denise's jaw dropped. "You're serious? Over a cookie?" The male officer didn't blink. "Ma'am, this is about child endangerment. Let's go." Jason stood, his hands shaking, his cool facade gone. "Andrea, how could you do this?" he said, his voice breaking. I looked at him, the man who'd cheated, who'd plotted against me with my own mother. "You did this to yourselves," I said. The officers led them out, Denise still protesting, Jason silent, his eyes avoiding mine. As the door closed, I held Shannon tighter, her small body warm against me. Crystal texted emails sent to police. "You got this." I'd outplayed them, turned their plan into their downfall. The camera, the emails, Ms. Lopez's statement about Denise's school visit, they'd all sealed the case. But as Shannon looked up at me, her eyes searching, a weight settled in my chest. I'd won this round, but at what cost? I'd played dirty, hacked emails, set a trap. Was I still the mom Shannon needed? Jason's shocked face flashed in my mind, his words sow beat ringing in my ears. I smiled, a cold edge to it, but my heart felt heavy. I'd beaten them at their own game, but the victory wasn't clean. The fight wasn't over, and I was already dreading what came next. The apartment was quiet after the police left, the hum of the AC, the only sound breaking the silence. Shannon curled up against me on the couch, her blue elephant sprinkles clutched tight. Her breathing was steady, but her earlier words, "I'm scared of Grandma," echoed in my head. I'd beaten Denise and Jason at their own game, turned their plan to sabotage me into their downfall. But as I sat there, the weight of what I'd done settled in. I'd hacked emails, set a trap, played dirty. The victory felt sharp, not sweet. Crystal came over that night, her laptop open with the email files she'd sent to the police. "You nailed them," she said, handing me a coffee. I nodded, but my chest was tight. The police had enough: my photos, the video from the hidden camera, Ms. Lopez's statement about Denise's odd questions at school, and those damning emails. Denise and Jason were charged with child endangerment. The judge didn't hesitate: 6 months in jail for both, no plea deals, no probation. Jason's lawyer Kyle tried to spin it, but the evidence was ironclad. The custody hearing was a formality after that. I got full legal and physical custody of Shannon, with Jason limited to supervised visits, no overnights, and a stack of court-ordered parenting classes he'd probably skip. I didn't go to their hearings. I didn't need to see Denise's fake tears or Jason's polished excuses. Crystal kept me updated, texting me when the gavel came down. "They're done," she wrote. I blocked their numbers that same day: Denise, Jason, even Kyle. No calls, no texts, no apologies. I was done with them, done with the family that chose ambition over my daughter. It wasn't just a boundary. It was a wall built to last forever. Miami's heat rolled on outside, but my apartment felt colder, emptier, like I'd carved out a piece of my past and left it behind. Shannon was safe, and that was everything. I enrolled her in therapy, a gentle woman who let her draw her feelings in bright colors. Shannon's nightmares about storms eased, and she started smiling more, her crayons sketching suns again. But one night as I tucked her into bed, she looked up at me, her eyes big and searching. "Mommy, why are you different now?" she asked, her voice small. I froze my hand on her blanket. Different, I saw it in her face. She'd seen the Andrea who'd planned, manipulated, outsmarted. Not the mom who sang lullabies or braided her hair. My throat tightened. "I'm still me, baby," I said, kissing her forehead. But as I turned off her light, her question lingered. Had I changed? I sat in the dark, sipping cold coffee, replaying the dinner. I'd been so sure, so calculated, hacking Denise's emails, setting up that camera, calling the police with precision. It worked. I protected Shannon, won custody, ended their game. But at what cost? I'd crossed lines, dipped into the same murky tactics Denise and Jason used. The emails were illegal, the trap ruthless. I wasn't like them. I'd never hurt Shannon, but I'd become someone who could scheme, who could smile while plotting. That wasn't the mom I wanted Shannon to see, but it was the mom she needed to keep her safe. Crystal didn't sugarcoat it. "You did what you had to," she said one evening, sprawled on my couch. "They were playing dirty first." She was right, but it didn't erase the unease. I looked at Shannon's drawings on the fridge, her lopsided sons and stick figure families. I'd won, but at what cost? Sometimes you have to get dirty to protect what matters, but you can't let it steal who you are. I almost lost sight of that, caught up in outsmarting them. I'd been so focused on winning, I hadn't seen how it changed me in Shannon's eyes. To anyone listening, here's what I learned. Trust your gut when something feels wrong, especially with family. Toxic people, blood or not, don't deserve a place in your life if they'd hurt your child to get what they want. I was lucky. I caught Denise and Jason before Shannon took a bite. But don't wait for proof like I did. If you see red flags, act, get a lawyer, document everything, protect what's yours. And if you have to fight dirty, be careful. It might save you, but it can cost you something too. Don't let it take your soul. Shannon's safe now, and we're building a quiet life, just us and Crystal's bad jokes. I check labels twice, lock my doors, and hold Shannon a little tighter. I'm not perfect, but I'm the mom she needs. Thank you for listening to my story. Please subscribe and drop a comment with your own experiences. I'd love to hear them. Let's keep this conversation going.